2a minus 3 over 6 equals 2a over 3 plus 1 half. The first step is to find the common denominator for adding. Step 2. Multiply the denominator times the factor that completes the total denominator. For step 3, add the two expressions. For step 4, cross-multiply using property of proportions. Step 5. Use distributive property to expand. For step 6, after expanding, combine the like terms. And for step 7, isolate the variables. When checking, just plug in the solution into the original equation. The solution would be correct if in one side the number is the same as the other. The equation is 2b minus 3 over 7 minus b over 2 equals b plus 3 over 14. For step 1, find the common denominator to subtract. Step 2. Multiply the numerator times the factor that completes the total denominator. Step 3. Then subtract the two expressions. 4. Simplify the denominators because they are the same in both sides. Step 5. Combine the like terms. And step 6. Isolate the variable. For checking, just plug in the solution into the original equation. The answer would be correct if one number is the same as the other in the other side.
To solve the equation 3 over 5x plus 7 over 2x equals 1, first you need to find the least common denominator between 5x and 2x, which in this case is 10x. Then you need to cross-multiply values of the original equation. Second, you have to solve for the multiplication of values and add the results. Third, now you have a new fraction equal to 1. Fourth, you send the denominator of the fraction multiplying to the other side with the 1. Fifth, you isolate or solve for x by moving numbers to one side and variables to the other side, and you get the value for x. In case you get two answers, you need to choose the one that is not the same as the excluded value and then check. To find the excluded value, you need to equal both denominators of the original equation to 0, and then solve for x. In order to check if your answer is correct, you need to plug in the value you got instead of x in the original equation. And then you have to check if your answer is equal to 1. To solve the equation 5k over k plus 2 over k equals 5, first you need to find the least common denominator between k plus 2 and k, which in this case would be k times k plus 2. Then you need to cross-multiply values of the original equation. Second, you have to solve for the multiplication of values and add the results, which becomes a new rational expression equal to 5. Third, you send the denominator of the new expression multiplying to the other side with a 5. Then, you need to move numbers to one side and variables to the other and solve. After you have solved, you isolate for k. In case you get two answers, you choose the one that is not the same as the excluded value and then check. To find the excluded value, you need to equal both denominators of the original equation to 0 and then solve for k. In order to check if your answer is correct, you need to plug in the value you got instead of k in the original equation and see if your answer is equal to 5.
To solve the rational expression m over m plus 1 plus 5 over m minus 1 equals 1, first we have to find the common denominator between the terms that are adding. So we have to cross-multiply m times m minus 1 plus 5 times m plus 1 over m plus 1 times m minus 1 equals 1. Next, we have to pass the denominator multiplying to the other side. and solve the terms that are added on the first side. So in the third step, we do m squared minus m plus 5m plus 5 equals m squared minus m plus m minus 1 because we multiplied the terms that were on each side. Next, we have to isolate for m, so we pass all the terms that correspond to one side and in order to isolate m. Then, when we have the values of m, that would be negative 3 over 2, in order to check, we substitute the values for m that were on the expression in the first hand. So we do m over m plus 1 plus 5 over m minus 1 is equal to 1, and we substitute with negative 3 over 2. Then we solve for the values, and we found out that 1 is equal to 1.
Solve the rational expression 4x over 3x minus 2 plus 2x over 3x plus 2 equals 2. The first thing you have to do is find a common denominator for both fractions. So what you do is multiply the denominator of the second fraction with the denominator and numerator of the first one. And you do the same with the denominator of the first one to the second fraction, which you would have equal to 2. Then you multiply for that and you will be left with a 12x squared plus 8x plus 6x squared minus 4x over 9x squared minus 4 equals 2. Then you send that denominator multiplying to the other side with a 2, and you will be left with an 18x squared plus 4x equals 2 times 9x squared minus 4. Then you multiply for that, and if you look at step number 5, you send the variables to the one side and the values to the other side, and you are going to be left with an 18x squared minus 18x squared plus 4x equals negative 8. Then you will be left with a 4x minus 8. Then to solve for x, you will send the 4 multiplying to the other side, and you will be left with an x equals negative 2. To check your answer, you plug the value you got for x, which in this case is negative 2, in the original equation. So you are left with the fraction 4 times negative 2 over 3 times negative 2 minus 2, plus 2 times negative 2 over 3 times negative 2 plus 2 equals 2. Which gives you the fraction negative 8 over negative 8 plus negative 4 over negative 4 equals 2. And you simplify those fractions and you will be left with a 1 plus 1 equals 2, which 1 plus 1 is 2. So your equation is correct if you have a 2 equals 2. And that's how you solve it if your answer is correct.
Hello. The equation is 5 over 5 minus p squared over 5 minus p equals negative 2. In the first step, you need to find a common denominator, in this case 5 minus p. Then you pass that denominator to multiply to the other side. After this, you need to solve the multiplication. Later, you need to put one variable in one side and the variables, in one side and the numbers in the other. Then you put the trinomial at one side that is equal to 0. After this, you have two solutions. Later, to check your answer, you need to plug in your solutions. So let's first plug in step number 9, solution negative 5. So as you can see, it's a negative 5 over 5 minus parentheses minus 5, and you close the parentheses. Then minus parentheses negative 5 squared over 5 minus parentheses negative 5, and you close the parentheses, and that's equal to negative 2. Then in step number 11, you solve this, and that will give you a 5 minus 3 squared over 5 minus 3 equals negative 2. After this, you need to solve the squared. So it's 5 minus 9 over 5 minus 3 equals negative 2. And the answer of this will be negative 4 over 2 equals negative 2. And negative 4 over 2 is equals to negative 2. So your equation was correct. The equation in exercise number 8 is 2a minus 3 over a minus 3 minus 2 equals 12 over a plus 3. In step number 1, I found the common denominator and added the numerators. Later, in step number 2, I combined the like terms and simplify in the numerators. Step number 3 is the answer of step number 2. Later, in step number 4, I did the cross multiplication. And in step number 5, I multiply with the distributive property. In step number 6, I put the variables in one side and the numbers at the other. And in steps 7 through 9, I isolate for variable A. Later, in step number 10, I start a check in which I plugged in the answer that it was 5 in the equation, and I solved this. And my answer in step 15 was 3 halves equals 3 halves. Yeah.
Solve a rational expression 2b minus 5 over b minus 2 equals 3 over b plus 2. The first thing you have to do is send the fractions to the same side and have the 2 to the other side. So you will have 2b minus 5 over b minus 2 minus 3 over b plus 2 equals 2. Then you have to have the same denominator so that you can solve for the fraction. So you get the denominator of the second fraction and multiply it with the numerator and denominator of the first fraction. Then you get the denominator of the first fraction and you do the same with the second fraction. And you have all of that equal to 2. Then you solve the multiplications and you will have a whole fraction that would be equal to 2. Then if you look at step number 4, you will see that you have 2b squared minus 4b minus 4 over b squared minus 4 equals 2. You send the denominator of that fraction multiplying to the other side, so you don't have a fraction anymore. Then you will have a 2b squared minus 4b minus 4 equals 2 times b squared minus 4. Then you have to multiply that and you will have a whole equation that would be 2b squared minus 4b minus 4 equals 2b squared minus 8. Then you will send your whole variables to one side and your values to the other side, which leaves you with a 2b squared minus 2b squared minus 4b equals negative 8 plus 4. Since you have a 2b squared minus a 2b squared, you cancel that, which gives you a 0, and you will have an equation left to be negative 4b equals negative 4. Then to solve for b, you will send the negative 4 dividing to the other side, and negative 4 over negative 4 gives you 1. So your value for b would be 1. And to check your answer, you have to look for the b in the original equation and replace that with the value you got for b, which would be 1. So you will have 2 times 1 minus 5 over 1 minus 2 minus 3 over 1 plus 2 equals 2, which then you'll solve for that, and you have negative 3 over negative 1 minus 3 over 3 equals 2, which gives you a 3 minus 1 equals 2. So your answer would be 2 equals 2, and then you have your whole process correct.
In order to solve for the equation 4 over k squared minus 8k plus 12 is equal to k over k minus 2 plus 1 over k minus 6, we have to find the common denominator between the terms that are being added, that are the two last terms. So we have to cross-multiply the values from the numerator with the values of the denominator. So it would be k times k minus 6 plus 1 times k minus 2 over k minus 2 times k minus 6. Next, we would solve for the multiplying values. Our resulting equation would be 4 over k squared minus 8k plus 12 is equal to 4 squared minus 5k minus 2 over k squared minus 8k plus 12. As you can see, the denominators in both expressions are the same, so when that happens you have to cross them out, and that would be equal to 1. So we have to pass all the variables to one side in order to isolate the values for k. So we've passed the 4 to the other side and make the expression the 0. Next, we have to solve for k, and the values that were k are 6 and negative 1. There are two values since the equation is a trinomial. In order to check our values, we have to substitute for k in the first equation, so it would be 4 over negative 1 squared minus 8k plus 12 is equal to negative 1 times negative 1 minus 6 plus 1 times negative 1 minus 2 over negative 1 minus 2 times negative 1 minus 6. And that would give me a final result that is equivalent to the other. I used the value of negative 1 in k because I couldn't use my excluded value from the equation in order to check that those were my values for k. And I knew that 6 was my excluded value because I had it as a factor in the first equation.